Have you ever wondered why some men, when faced with a truly powerful woman, do not rise but instead retreat? It is not weakness in the ordinary sense. It is something far more ancient, something woven into the deep architecture of the male psyche. For when a man encounters a woman whose spirit is fiercer than his own, he is not merely meeting a person, he is meeting his anima. The hidden feminine within him that he has long denied, buried, or feared. Carl Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Yet what if the transformation threatens the structure of his entire identity? What if, in her gaze, he sees the reflection of the man he could be, but is not yet ready to become? There is a silent tremor that runs through the male ego when confronted by feminine power not born of manipulation or seduction, but of inner sovereignty. It is not the kind of power that seeks to control, it is the kind that cannot be controlled. She is the mirror of his unintegrated potential, the test of his maturity, the invitation to evolve, and most men, unprepared to meet their own shadow, will recoil. For centuries, men were taught that their worth was measured by dominance, by their ability to lead, to conquer, to be the strong one. Yet a woman who stands firm in her own essence dismantles this ancient illusion. She does not challenge his power, she renders it irrelevant. Because her power is not an act, it is being. She does not shout, her silence commands. She does not chase, her presence draws out truth like a mirror draws light. And in that presence, something inside him cracks. He senses her depth, the vastness of a woman who has faced her own darkness and befriended it. He feels both magnetized and terrified, drawn toward her gravity yet desperate to maintain the safety of the known world. His instincts tell him she is dangerous, not because she will harm him, but because she will reveal him. A man may spend his life running from this revelation. He will label her too intense, too emotional, too independent, but these are disguises for a deeper confession. I cannot yet face the parts of myself that she awakens. When a man meets a woman stronger than himself, he meets the edge of his ego's dominion. His projections, those fantasies of control, rescue, or superiority, begin to crumble. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow. That moment when what has been repressed in the unconscious demands recognition. In her presence, he must either integrate or withdraw. You, listening now, may have witnessed this dynamic in your own life. You've seen the man whose eyes lit up at your fire, only to dim when your fire illuminated his insecurities. You've seen the fascination that turned to resistance, the praise that became withdrawal. What began as admiration turned to fear, and then to distance. But understand this, his retreat was not a rejection of your worth. It was a defense of his unhealed self. For the strong woman, the one who carries within her both the nurturing mother and the fierce huntress, is not an easy mirror to behold. She represents what the masculine unconsciously longs for: wholeness, balance, the merging of strength and softness. Yet to stand before such a woman requires that he has already met his own inner feminine. The anima that whispers through intuition, empathy, and vulnerability. If he has not, her presence feels like chaos. She becomes the storm that threatens to dismantle the fragile fortress of his self-image. And yet, she is not the storm. She is the calm within it, the still center where truth cannot be ignored. In the Jungian sense, every relationship is an alchemical process. When a man and woman meet, it is not merely two egos colliding, it is two unconscious worlds intertwining. Her strength challenges his rigidity. His hesitation challenges her compassion. Through friction, they are meant to transmute the base metals of fear into the gold of understanding. But only if both are willing to burn. When he cannot, he leaves, and the woman is left questioning, was she too much? Too outspoken? Too independent? Too real? No, she was simply the mirror that arrived before he was ready to see. In the mythic landscape of the psyche, the powerful woman has always been misunderstood. From Lilith to Artemis, from Kali to the modern self-possessed woman who walks with both grace and conviction, her presence has always unsettled those who cling to illusion. Because she belongs to herself. She does not beg to be chosen, she chooses. She does not wait for validation, she embodies it. This embodiment is the most threatening thing of all. It pierces the fragile veil of masculine entitlement and forces confrontation with truth. that strength is not domination, but integration. That a man's power does not diminish beside her, it either evolves or dissolves. In that space between admiration and fear, many men find themselves caught in the archetype of the wounded hero, the one who craves the light of the feminine but cannot yet bear its radiance. He will oscillate between desire and defense, between longing and withdrawal. He wants to touch her soul, but he has not yet faced his own. The strong woman, meanwhile, walks a sacred path. She is not here to be understood by all, nor to be softened for comfort. Her role in the great dance of human evolution is not to make the man feel safe, but to awaken him. Yet she must also learn discernment, to know when to offer compassion, and when to step away. Because sometimes, the most loving act is to let him wrestle his own shadow in solitude. The union of masculine and feminine is not a simple romance, it is a psychological initiation. It asks for the death of illusion, the surrender of control, the merging of opposites within. The woman who has done her inner work, who has faced her own pain without turning bitter, becomes an archetype of transformation. She is both mirror and medicine, but her medicine will taste like poison to the man who still fears truth. He may call her difficult. He may say she makes him feel not enough. But beneath these words lies an unspoken truth. She makes him see. And that seeing can feel unbearable to the unready soul. Yet, those few men who dare to stay, who allow her strength to challenge rather than diminish them, will find something extraordinary. Through her, they meet the fullness of life itself. Through her, they learn that vulnerability is not weakness but wisdom. Through her, they begin the slow, sacred process of becoming whole. Because a strong woman does not break a man, she breaks the illusions he hides behind. And in doing so, she offers him the rarest of gifts, the invitation to become real. When the man withdraws, the silence he leaves behind is not an absence, it is an echo. An echo of what could have been transformed, but wasn't. The strong woman stands there, not broken, but trembling with the quiet ache of clarity. She has seen this before, the moment where her authenticity becomes too heavy for someone who still confuses depth with danger. For her, the lesson is ancient. Power, when embodied in the feminine, does not scream, it simply is, and because it does not demand permission to exist, it exposes the insecurities of those who seek to control it. A man who has not yet integrated his shadow will perceive her strength as rebellion, her independence as rejection, her truth as attack, yet she has attacked nothing. She merely exists without apology. This is the psychological mirror that Jung spoke of, where projection begins and truth ends. When a man cannot bear the wholeness of a woman, it is often because he has fragmented his own soul into acceptable parts and buried the rest. Her emotional intelligence calls forth his repressed sensitivity. Her decisiveness reflects his indecision. Her inner peace threatens the chaos he has yet to confront. And yet, paradoxically, he desires her, not merely her body or her beauty, but the sense of freedom that radiates from her. She becomes the embodiment of everything he has disowned within himself. This is the alchemy of attraction and fear, the simultaneous pull toward and recoil from what one needs most. For her, it feels like a haunting. She senses his longing, feels the magnetic thread that ties them in the invisible realm of archetypes. But she has learned, sometimes through pain, sometimes through sacred solitude, that she cannot heal what he refuses to see. Love cannot substitute for inner work, and the feminine, no matter how nurturing, cannot mother a man into maturity. In Jungian terms, the woman who has integrated her shadow becomes the conscious anima incarnate. She carries within her the light and dark of the feminine principle, tenderness and fire, empathy and discernment, creation and destruction. She is no longer ruled by her need to please or to prove. Her boundaries are not walls, they are sacred gates. To stand within her presence is to stand within truth itself. When a man stands before such a woman, two paths open before him. The first leads backward, into the safety of ego illusions, where he can blame her for his discomfort and retreat into familiar patterns. The second leads inward, into the burning crucible of transformation, where he must dismantle everything false within himself to meet her as an equal. Most choose the first path. A few, however, choose the second, and for those few, everything changes. When a man accepts that her strength is not competition but invitation, He begins to meet his own feminine essence, his anima, not as weakness but as power. He begins to feel rather than suppress. He learns to listen without defense, to love without ownership. His masculinity softens without losing structure. It becomes the mountain that holds, not the cage that confines. It is here that the ancient dance of the archetypes begins to harmonize. She, the sovereign woman, no longer seeks to be chosen. He, the awakened man, no longer seeks to dominate. Instead, they mirror each other's divinity, each reflecting what the other has forgotten. Together they become the sacred balance of opposites, the animus and anima united in mutual reverence. But before such union can occur, both must pass through fire. For her, it is the fire of discernment, learning that her compassion must never become self-erasure. For him, it is the fire of ego death, learning that control is not the same as strength, and vulnerability not the same as weakness. You, listening now, may have lived this fire. Perhaps you once loved someone whose presence forced you to meet yourself more honestly than you ever wished to. You felt exposed, dismantled, undone, but within that undoing lay a hidden grace, the beginning of individuation. The sacred process Jung described as the soul's journey toward wholeness. Individuation demands that both masculine and feminine energies within us reconcile, that the warrior learn to feel, and the nurturer learn to stand firm. The strong woman embodies this balance. She is both sword and sanctuary. That is why she unsettles those who have only known extremes, the submissive or the controlling, the gentle or the hard. Her presence whispers of a third way, the integrated path, where love does not weaken but fortifies. To the man who has not yet walked this path, she appears unpredictable. One moment she is soft as moonlight, the next sharp as glass. But this is not inconsistency, it is wholeness. She moves with the truth of the moment, not the expectations of others. Her authenticity is fluid because it flows from source, not performance. In ancient myth, the goddess archetype that most mirrors her essence is Inanna, the Sumerian queen who descended into the underworld to face her shadow, died, and rose transformed. Like Inanna, the strong woman has known her descent. She has faced betrayal, loneliness, and the hunger to be seen. She has touched her own darkness and chosen not to be consumed. That is what gives her presence its gravity, the calm certainty of one who no longer fears herself. And so, when a man meets her, he meets the underworld within himself. He is invited, not by her demand, but by her existence, to confront his inner demons, shame, pride, fear of inadequacy. If he accepts this invitation, she becomes the catalyst of his rebirth. If he refuses, she becomes his haunting. There is no neutrality in her presence. She awakens or she triggers. And sometimes both, because truth, in its purest form, does not negotiate. It liberates, but only those willing to be undone. As he turns away, seeking comfort in simpler women or safer illusions, she watches with a quiet understanding. Not bitterness, just awareness. She knows that each man must meet his own timing. The strong woman is not here to chase, convince, or soften herself into palatability. She knows her role in the cosmic drama, the revealer, not the rescuer. She continues walking, not because she has stopped feeling, but because she has learned that her energy is sacred currency. Her love is not a commodity for the unready, it is a temple for the awakened. And she guards the temple now, not with walls, but with wisdom. Her story is not one of loss, but of liberation. For every man who leaves in fear, another will one day arrive in reverence, the one who has faced his shadow, buried his pride, and emerged whole. That man will not shrink from her power. He will recognize it as the mirror of his own. Until then, she continues her journey, luminous, unshaken, sovereign. She knows that every encounter, even those that end in silence, is a sacred initiation, because what awakens in her presence is never truly lost. It simply waits, until the soul is ready to rise. There comes a moment, subtle yet seismic, when the dance between the masculine and the feminine shifts from resistance to revelation. The strong woman, having endured the cycles of projection and withdrawal, begins to see with eyes unclouded by need. She no longer seeks to understand why a man could not meet her where she stands. She understands instead that not every soul is ready for such clarity. In that realization, something inside her relaxes. The tension of being too much dissolves. The ache of misunderstanding quiets. For the first time, she stands not against the masculine, but beside the truth of it, seeing the brokenness not as a personal wound, but as part of the human condition. This is the wisdom that comes when a woman ceases to define her value through reaction, and instead roots it in being. Jung called this individuation, the process by which the self becomes whole, uniting the conscious and unconscious, the light and the shadow. For her, it means she no longer confuses connection with completion. She knows she is already complete. Her love, then, becomes an offering, not a bargain. She gives without bleeding. She holds without grasping. The strong woman who has integrated her shadow becomes the living embodiment of the self-archetype, the synthesis of opposites that dwells beyond duality. In her, both the wounded girl and the sovereign queen coexist in peace. She no longer needs to fight for power, she is power, expressed through stillness and discernment. The fire that once burned to prove now burns to illuminate. And when a man encounters this version of her, this luminous being who is neither hardened nor submissive, something in him stirs. It is no longer the impulsive pull of desire, but the sacred tremor of recognition. He senses that to approach her requires more than charm or conquest, it requires truth. She will not settle for the shadow of a man, she calls forth his essence. For him, this is the final initiation. If he has done his inner work, faced his fears, embraced his sensitivity, dismantled his pride, then her presence does not terrify him anymore. It steadies him. He no longer sees her as competition or mystery, but as a reflection of his own wholeness. Their union ceases to be a battlefield and becomes an altar. Here, in this sacred equilibrium, love transcends polarity. It becomes the meeting of two individuated beings, each sovereign, each whole, yet willing to merge without losing themselves. This is not romance as the world teaches it, with its games and power struggles. It is a psychological and spiritual communion, where both mirror the divine through the human form. But such love is rare, because it demands death before rebirth, the death of ego, of illusion, of attachment to being right or being chosen. The strong woman has walked through this death already. She has grieved the men who could not see her, and the versions of herself that begged to be seen. She has wept for the tenderness she once mistook for weakness, and in those tears, she found her sacred clarity. That clarity is her new language. She no longer argues or persuades. Her boundaries are quiet, her energy precise. She can love a man deeply, and still walk away if he begins to forget his own strength. For she knows that staying out of pity is not compassion, it is self-betrayal. She would rather stand alone in truth than be adored in illusion. This is where her true magnetism lies. Paradoxically, the moment she no longer needs to be chosen is the moment she becomes irresistible, not because she performs for love, but because she embodies it. She radiates a serenity that both unsettles and awakens. Men who have not yet integrated their shadows may find her untouchable, but those who have will find her divine. In the archetypal realm, she has become the Sophia, wisdom embodied in feminine form. She no longer seduces through desire, she teaches through presence. Her gaze is not a demand but an invitation. Can you meet me here? In truth, without your armor? And when a man says yes, truly yes, everything shifts. Their connection becomes a sacred crucible. Through her softness, he learns surrender. Through his steadiness, she learns trust. They do not complete each other, they amplify each other. Together, they dissolve the illusion that love must wound to be real. Their relationship becomes a living meditation on balance. When conflict arises, they do not run, they reflect. When shadow surfaces, they name it, not to blame, but to understand. The drama that once consumed the unconscious becomes dialogue. The power that once divided becomes creation. You, listening now, can feel it, the resonance of what is possible when two souls meet beyond projection. You may sense that you, too, are on this path. Perhaps you are the strong woman who has tired of being misunderstood. Or perhaps you are the man who has finally grown weary of his defenses. Either way, this truth stands. No love can evolve beyond the consciousness of those within it. The strong woman's story is not a tragedy, it is a prophecy. She exists to usher in a new paradigm of connection, one built not on need, but on awareness. Her strength is not defiance, it is integration. Her independence is not isolation, it is sovereignty. Through her, Humanity remembers that love is not possession, but reflection, the soul recognizing itself in another. She no longer waits for anyone to meet her at this level. She knows that those meant to will arrive not through coincidence, but through alignment. Until then, she walks alone, but never lonely. Her solitude is sacred ground, the temple where her power renews itself. She tends to her spirit, listens to her intuition, honors her emotions without shame. For the first time, she realizes, she does not need to be stronger. She only needs to be whole. Strength was never the goal, wholeness was. And from that wholeness, love flows effortlessly, no longer as a quest, but as an expression of being. In that realization, she becomes light itself, neither chasing nor fleeing, simply illuminating. She moves through the world with quiet majesty, aware that her worth is self-evident. No validation, no approval, no external acknowledgement can add or subtract from what already is. This is the final liberation, the freedom not just from men, but from the need to prove anything at all. The awakened man, when he finally appears, will recognize this frequency. He will not try to contain it, for he understands that what is truly divine cannot be owned. Together, they will not burn each other out, they will burn brighter. There is a silence that follows awakening, not the silence of emptiness, but of fullness. It is the stillness that comes when the inner war has ended. The strong woman, once called intimidating, difficult, or unyielding, now moves like water, soft, but unstoppable. Her power no longer needs an audience. It hums quietly beneath her skin, a song only the awakened can hear. She has crossed the final threshold of individuation. The masks of survival, perfection, independence as armor, invulnerability as shield, have all dissolved. In their place remains something infinitely more beautiful, serenity. She is no longer performing strength, she is embodying peace. For years, she fought to be understood. She tried to explain that her boundaries were not barriers, her standards not arrogance, her solitude not rejection. But now, she no longer explains. Explanation is for those who doubt, embodiment is for those who know. And she knows. She understands that her energy is sacred architecture, the field where authenticity builds its temple. Anyone entering must come barefoot, with reverence, because here, truth is currency and intention is prayer. She lives now by the law of resonance, not pursuit. What vibrates with her frequency arrives naturally. What does not falls away without drama. This is not detachment, it is alignment. She does not shut her heart, she opens it selectively, like sunlight through ancient trees. Her love is no longer scattered like confetti, it is poured like wine, rare, rich, deliberate. There are men who will feel this radiance and mistake it for distance. They will say she has changed, that she has become hard. But they do not understand, it is not hardness they see, but clarity. She has simply stopped mistaking empathy for obligation. Her compassion remains boundless, but it no longer leaks. And somewhere out there, the man who once retreated from her strength begins to feel a stirring. Time and silence have done their work. His ego, once inflated by illusion, has deflated into humility. He has learned that strength is not loud, and love is not control. Through his solitude, he has met the very parts of himself he once feared, the soft, the uncertain, the unseen, and in that meeting, he has found his wholeness. Now, when he thinks of her, he no longer feels threatened. He feels reverence. He understands that she was never trying to overpower him, she was trying to meet him. And that the space she left behind was not rejection, but invitation, the invitation to evolve. Perhaps they will never meet again in this lifetime. Perhaps their souls will dance in silence, having completed their sacred contract. Or perhaps, when paths cross once more, they will recognize each other not through longing, but through peace. Their eyes will not ignite in chaos, but in calm knowing. For now, both have become who they were meant to be, mirrors of consciousness, not prisons of projection. In the broader landscape of the human psyche, this union between the strong woman and the awakened man symbolizes something larger, the reconciliation of opposites within us all. It is not about gender, but about energy. The masculine learns to feel, the feminine learns to stand. The result is not balance in theory, but harmony in being. When the masculine and feminine within us integrate, we stop seeking completion outside of ourselves. We begin to love from overflow, not from emptiness. This is the love Jung called the transcendent function, the alchemical merging that produces not dependency, but expansion. And this is the new paradigm the strong woman represents. She is not here to prove that women can be powerful. That battle is old and beneath her. She is here to redefine what power is. Not force, not dominance, not perfection, but wholeness. Her radiance is the medicine of a healed feminine, tender but unafraid, rooted but free. Through her, the collective remembers that love is not submission or superiority, it is sovereignty meeting sovereignty. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she still remembers the ache of the old patterns, the way she used to shrink to make others comfortable, the way she mistook endurance for loyalty, the way she equated attention with affection. She smiles now at that younger version of herself, not with pity, but with gratitude, for that girl's ache became this woman's awakening. Her healing was not linear. It came in spirals, in nights of tears and mornings of stillness, in heartbreaks that stripped her to bone and wisdom that rebuilt her from ash. Like the phoenix, she did not simply rise, she remembered she was fire all along. And this remembrance is her legacy. Every woman who watches her, who senses her serenity, begins to awaken too. They start to question the narratives they were given, that love must cost selfhood, that softness is submission, that silence is agreement. They begin to reclaim themselves, piece by piece, until they too walk with the quiet power of knowing. This is how revolutions are born, not with noise, but with presence. The strong woman, in her final form, is not the warrior constantly fighting. She is the sage sitting beneath the tree, smiling at the irony that true power never needed defense. Her energy no longer spikes, it radiates. Her words no longer persuade, they vibrate truth. If you listen closely, you can feel her energy even now, through these words, through the pulse beneath your own ribs. Because she is not an individual, she is an archetype. She lives in every woman who has ever refused to shrink, in every man who has dared to feel, in every soul that has chosen truth over comfort. The world changes each time such a soul awakens. Because the moment you stop chasing validation, the system that profits from your self-doubt begins to crumble. And the moment you start embodying your worth, every illusion built on scarcity begins to fade. So she continues walking, through cities, through dreams, through centuries, her presence a reminder that evolution is not about becoming more, but becoming real. She no longer seeks the fairy tale. She is the myth reborn, the one where the woman saves herself. And by doing so, saves the balance of the world. Her eyes no longer ask, "Will you love me?" They say, "Can you meet me?" Her soul no longer whispers, "I hope I'm enough." It declares, "I am." And in that quiet declaration, she becomes both ending and beginning, the still point where creation and destruction meet.